I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Supervisor Fountain?
Here.
Treasurer Horning? Absent. Clerk Chofew? Here. Trustee Collier?
Here.
Trustee Germain?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Petrucci? Here.
Thank you. Item number 4 is approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved. Support.
Motion by trustee Kalani, second by trustee Germain. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Call to the public. There's nobody here for the call to the public this evening. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Support.
Motion by trustee Germain, second by trustee Kalani. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 7 is pending a new business, Settlers Park Plant Management Plan. We had a company called PlantWise come out. Are you going to do this one, Bob?
Yeah, I have no problem doing that.
So-
Thank you very much. This project or proposal, I should start off with, stems from a prior work session regarding the feasibility of managing the plants out in Settlers Park. There was kind of some concerns about invasive plant-type material out there and kind of concerns about it overgrowing to the point of some parts of the park may become unusable in the future. Based on the recommendation of the Livingston Land Conservancy, I contacted PlantWise, a gentleman by the name of David Mendel, and he came out with me and we walked the entire park, unknown to me that we were going to do it that day. It was raining and we went through every bit of the park, and basically he was very pleased with what he saw. Basically on the north-south run of the trail that starts at Meyer, everything to the west of there, so kind of in between the condos and the pathway, he said was primarily native plants in there. There's not a lot of concern in there. He says there's very, very minor things that you may want to just kind of keep an eye on over the next 5 to 7 years. Everything to the east of that path, he said, was basically brought in for farm and animal grazing, which is normal on former farming sites. So he said, what you'll see here, he's kind of divided up into 2 different sections. So you have section A and section B, basically 35 acres and 82 acres. The 35 is obviously the western portion of the park, where basically phase 1 of the mountain bike trail is, if you will. Long story short, Mr. Mendel walked through and he has given us a proposal. What he would like to do is survey the sites, kind of do an inventory, and then develop management plans and basically provide us with recommendations moving forward. This won't lock us into any action as far as when we have to do these or how we have to do it. It's just more of a matter of we will have a document in our hands that kind of highlights and inventories what we have in the park and what we should keep an eye on moving forward. He's broken it up if we were not ready to do the whole park into the western and then what would be known as the remainder of the site. However, if we were to do the whole site at a single time, it'd be $2,775. So my recommendation is to do both at the same time. I think it's a valuable tool to have in our toolbox as we move forward with park development. And additionally, if approved, this will require a budget amendment. It certainly wasn't part of our approved budget, and we'll look to start in the fall. Once all the foliage kind of falls off the trees, it's a little easier to navigate back in the dense, thick areas. But that's what you have presented before you. Yes, sir.
Would this be considered a true plant inventory or more of a grouping like of species?
It would be more of the grouping and species. It won't necessarily get into quantities, but rather what, if it exists or if it doesn't. And he's going to try and do, if we provide him with the GIS, he'll kind of map out where these groupings are. So we'll kind of have a picture. It won't necessarily be quantifiable because it will change from year to year as this stuff grows. So But it kind of highlights the areas of more concern versus areas that, we keep an eye on, but we should be proud of as far as native plants.
Okay, and then the second question I have is, during his initial walkthrough, did he indicate if there's any lumber that could be harvested?
He indicated that he didn't see anything that he would recommend harvesting at this time. He said maybe moving forward, there may be some in 10 to 15 years, but at this point in time, he didn't recommend anything. That was a question of mine as far as, is there anything that should kind of be removed, especially as far as the trees. Certainly if we have a new park feature, it's something to entertain if one is in the way. However, he said he would not recommend the removal of any actual trees or lumbering, if you will, at this time.
Are there any other questions by the board members? I asked Sarah Thomas, who's the current president of the Land Conservancy, what her thoughts were to have like a baseline like this and having some recommendations. She said because it's still, a lot of it's still, because when did we mow that, Matt? About 5 years ago? 8 years ago maybe now? But it was all being farmed before that. So her thought is, now's a good time to get ahead of the game versus you let it go another 10 years and you've got Russian olive and other things that have really taken over. So it gives you, and I think what it said here on his program, he would give recommendations for like mowing, frequency, timing for different things as well. So we can keep ahead of the game. So she highly recommended that we do this for that parcel.
And I should add too, this is also the type of kind of inventory management, if you will. If we choose to do nothing with it, it's something where in 5 years we could call him back and say, hey, can you just do a quick update? He doesn't have to go back and find all these plants. He already has it. This will be kind of like the baseline document. It certainly can be updated down the road. As Bill said, a lot of the plants are young.
Look, this is a management plan. What about the implementation of the plan?
Now, the implementation, I actually asked for recommendations from Mr. Mindell, and he provided more than I could contact. I started with a mass email, and I got many municipalities that wrote back, and a lot of them take a similar plans who have conducted them, and one of two things generally happens is they either work alongside him and contract him plant-wise to perform certain aspects of it. The other way is they do it in-house with in-house staff as they, get time. PlantWise does offer training for in-house staff, and it's just like a 2-hour training to say, hey, here's what you're going to look for. When you find it, here's how you're going to treat it. This is a chemical you want to use if you're going to use chemical, or you can just kind of cut it back. Really, it's a flexible what we do with this document and how we proceed forward with the management. PlantWise is willing to be involved in it or not involved in it as much as we want them to be. Very flexible. I was very impressed with that. And every community I reached out to highly recommended PlantWise. They said they just had favorable results as far as, there no scope creep or anything like that, no change orders. It's just been it's pleasant.
I'm not so concerned about the plan, and I'm going to probably move to approve this, but and certainly support it. I'm just wondering the cost of implementing the plan. Is this plan something that you do every year? Is it a plan that is something we do every 5 years, or is it an ongoing thing? I'm just trying to understand and what the cost might be related to that.
Absolutely. One of the municipality, specific municipality, kind of escapes me right now. I believe it was, don't quote me on this, but I think Bloomfield Township Parks. What they do is they basically set aside a certain budget of $1,500, and basically that's for the chemical, and they'll use their own in-house staff. What they do is they ask basically PlantWise to come out and just kind of ribbon off the real, ribbon off the plants that definitely need to go. And he charges a nominal fee. It's basically an hourly scope. And they say that usually for $250, $300, they'll come out and kind of, now it's much smaller, more of an open kind of sports park area, but on the perimeter, this would be a little bit different animal. But Again, he's very flexible, and they just budget that annually. When they know they have kind of a bigger thing, they'll skip it one year and kind of double up the next year.
We're looking more to, I mean, we don't know necessarily the outcome of the plan. It may be very low-hanging fruit that needs to be done. There may be more detailed things. In the end, it'll all come down to dollars. It'll be a budget discussion that you'll be involved with to say, well, you know, out of that plan, we can put X number of dollars into doing as much as you can and make that stretch as far as you can. That's kind of how we were looking at it. Until then, we don't know what we don't know.
I envision most likely some hybrid approach with using our staff in basically the spring and the fall. Those are the best times to do it before the leaves start growing. It might be like a 2 or 3 hour training of identifying certain plants, but once we get the hang of it, I don't see any financial obstacles to it.
This former pasture field southwest of this building is full of Russian olives, and that's probably the worst part of the whole park.
You're absolutely right. That's this corner right behind here, he said, is the highest density of invasive species.
Right.
So he said that will be the most challenging section, and, you know, certainly he'll kind of say, if you're going to do something every year, you know, that's where you want to do your annual kind of, you know, practice or performance. The other parts of it, just kind of keep an eye on every 3 years or so, but doesn't necessarily require follow-up from plant-wise. He's always there to help as needed, but certainly could be conducted with in-house staff as time permits.
Did you say what chemical would be used to get rid of the plants?
It was a generic form of a Roundup, and it's more of a concentrated, and what he did recommend was he did not recommend any spraying. What he recommends is you cut the tip off. He showed me how to do one, and it's basically like a paintbrush. You paint the end of it, so you're not getting everything on all the neighboring plants. He's very prescriptive in how you do it. This is not, he called it like a mass execution where you're just spraying this chemical all around. In fact, you don't even use a sprayer. You are paintbrushing and cutting the end off and just painting. And he says your goal is not to necessarily, you know, immediately kill them. It's to manage them. And he says it's a different approach that his company likes to do, is just slowly kind of keep it under wraps versus just wiping everything out on day one.
See, it's my understanding if you just cut it and don't do anything else, it'll come right back. That the Roundup actually gets in that plant itself and kills it from the inside. That's what they were talking about.
Okay. You know, I have a concern about the chemical in that. I mean,
I understand.
The lawsuits are starting to come now, so we have to be careful.
Yeah. Anything else? If there isn't any, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the budget amendment and plant-wise proposal for a Settlers Park plant management plan up to $2,775.
Support?
Motion by Clerk Schofu, second by Trustee Harper. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We'll go on to board reports. We start with Trustee Germain,
Nothing this evening?
Trustee Harper,
No report.
Trustee Petrucci.
Just want to remind everybody, I think school starts tomorrow. Be careful, there's going to be kids out, buses out, drive safely. This is a little reminder, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Clerk Schofu.
I attended an absentee voter focus group on August 8th to review the absentee voter ballot processing methods that all the clerks are using around the state. Due to the no reason absentee ballot change, we're anticipating a much higher volume for the November presidential election, so we're just trying to streamline processes to be able to handle the volumes. I've also been asked to be part of the risk limiting audit work group to discuss a statewide election audit that's really mandated by Proposition 18.3. Risk limiting audit is an effective, efficient, transparent method to ensure that the outcome of the elections is truly correct. They'll be holding meetings in September and October. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Trustee Kalani?
I have nothing.
I have nothing this evening, so with that, we'll take a brief recess and we'll go into closed session.
How is brief described tonight determined? 5 minutes, 3 minutes?
What was that?